That came way too easily. They pulled over 100 grun of gold in just a few hours. It felt like stealing from history itself. But then something felt off. The deeper they dug, the more questions surfaced. Who left this mine behind? Why did no one ever come back? And then, right as they reached what should have been the most lucrative part, they found something they weren't prepared for. Evidence that they weren't the first to uncover these riches. And those who had come before? They left in a hurry. Then came the massive dig. Another miner in the area, desperate to hit the bedrock, had been working for weeks, pouring everything he had into a single hole, a hole that kept sucking up money faster than it gave back gold. It was a high-stakes gamble, the kind Parker knew all too well. He watched closely, knowing how easily fortunes could flip from rich to ruin. But here's the kicker. The deeper Parker's team went, the clearer it became that this wasn't just an abandoned mine. It was a time capsule frozen in history. The rock formations didn't line up with modern geological maps. The tools they found were too advanced for the period. Someone had been here before, and they had left something behind. Something more valuable than gold. Kano's team, the other miner on site, was just as desperate. If they could pull 5 or 6 kilos of gold in one haul, they'd be set. But it was never just about the money. It was about the chase. The thrill of knowing that something massive was just within reach. I'm amazed at the pans we had further downstream. We spent millions of dollars stripping to get to ground like that, and they're just scooping it up off the side of the riverbank. Crazy. Every scoop of dirt was either a step toward fortune or a reminder of how fast things could go wrong. Parker had been in tight spots before, but this was different. There was an energy in that mine, something that whispered to past miners who had tried and failed. And yet, with every passing hour, his instincts told him to keep going. Because what if this was the one? What if this was a site that could make history? The ground got more unstable the deeper they dug, the closer they got to something that had been waiting beneath the surface for centuries. And then they hit the bedrock, the final layer before either striking it rich or walking away empty-handed. This was it, and there it was. Gold, more than they had expected, more than any mine in the area had produced in decades. But the real discovery, it wasn't just the gold. It was what they found alongside it. Artifacts, markings that didn't belong to any known mining operation. Someone had been here before, long before modern miners ever set foot in this land, and they had left behind a secret that Parker wasn't sure he wanted to uncover. With riches in hand, Parker had a choice to make. Take the gold and walk away, or keep digging, keep risking, and chase something even bigger. He'd spent his whole life mining, but some treasures aren't meant to be found. Some discoveries rewrite history, and some mines, they're abandoned for a reason. Tensions grew among the crew. Some wanted to report the find immediately, to hand it over to the historians and archaeologists who could properly document what they were seeing. Others wanted to keep going, to see how deep the mystery ran, to extract every bit of wealth and knowledge this place had to offer. Parker, torn between the thrill of discovery and the weight of responsibility, had to make a decision fast. Time was running out. Then came the first real setback. The deeper they dug, the more unstable the ground became. The ancient supports holding up the tunnels were not built for modern excavation. Cracks ran through the walls, dust filled the air, and then collapse. A portion of the mine caved in, sealing off part of their path and forcing them to rethink. Their entire approach, they were dealing with something more than just old rock and dirt. They were fighting against time itself, against the very earth that had hidden these secrets for centuries. By now, Parker wasn't sure if they were digging for gold or for answers. His crew, exhausted and on edge, kept working, each of them, knowing they were part of something far bigger than they had signed up for, but the question lingered in the back of everyone's mind. Were they prepared for what they were about to find? Days turned into weeks, every ounce of gold they pulled. Out of the mine was another reminder of how much was at stake. The artifacts, carefully documented but never fully understood, raised more questions than they answered. And then, just as they were about to wrap up, they hit something they never expected, a chamber, sealed off from the rest of the mine. untouched, undisturbed, waiting. What they found inside changed everything. This was more than a gold mine. This was something ancient, something lost to time. And Parker knew in that moment that he had a choice: take the gold and leave, or step into the unknown and uncover the truth buried beneath the surface. Mining isn't just about gold. It's a fight to stay on top, a battle for mining supremacy. Back in the early days, Todd Hoffman and his crew stormed into the gold mining scene with more enthusiasm than sense. They barely scraped together 15 ounces of gold, which wasn't even close to the big payday they dreamed of. That first season was brutal. No experience, bad luck, and a whole lot of reality checks. But instead of quitting, they doubled down, ready to risk everything again. I thought we were done looking like idiots, but nope, we've still got a little bit of that to go on our journey to become miners. It hit like a sledgehammer, just when the Hoffmans thought they were getting the hang of it. They lost their claim at Porcupine Creek. Dakota Fred swooped in, took over, and basically kicked them to the curb. Instead of licking their wounds, they hustled to Quartz Creek and clawed out nearly 100 ounces of gold. Meanwhile, a teenage upstart named Parker Schnabel was making moves at Big Nugget Mine, showing up the veterans and proving he wasn't just a kid playing in the dirt. The Hoffmans weren't messing around anymore. They pulled in over 800 ounces, a massive leap from their rookie year. Parker, still sharpening his skills, managed nearly 200 ounces. This wasn't just about luck anymore. It was about strategy, grit, and knowing when to take risks. The competition was officially on. Season 3 brought another wave of ambitious moves. Parker, no longer content with playing it safe, pushed himself to haul in over 1,000 ounces. He was making a statement. Todd Hoffman and his crew had their best haul yet, but their numbers were starting to look small next to Parker's rise. The pressure to perform was starting to feel heavier, and the rivalry was no longer just friendly competition. Season 4, Parker shattered expectations with more than 2,500 ounces. The Hoffmans, refusing to be left in the dust, rallied 1,400 ounces. The battle lines had been drawn. The days of amateur mining were long gone. Every single decision mattered now. Every mistake cost money. Every setback felt personal. Parker's dominance reached new heights in Season 5. He pulled in more than 3,300 ounces, proving he was no longer a rising star. He was the one setting the standard. Tony Beats, a veteran who had been in the game for years, added more than 700 ounces to his growing empire. The competition was fierce, but it wasn't just about who could mine the most. It was about survival in a business that took everything from those who weren't ready. Season 8 was a game changer. Parker's team obliterated expectations with more than 6,200 ounces. Tony Beats wasn't far behind, stacking up over 3,600 ounces. The scale of these operations had grown into something unimaginable. What started as a handful of guys with shovels had turned into multi-million-dollar mining empires, and the pressure to keep performing was relentless. Season 9 shattered more records. Parker's team pulled in over 7,400 ounces, proving once again that he was the undisputed leader in the game. Tony Beats followed with more than 4,000 ounces, keeping the fight alive. These weren't just numbers. They were statements of power. The gold was flowing, but the stress was mounting and the cracks were starting to show. Season 10 came with new challenges, but the results spoke for themselves. Parker's team pulled in more than 7,500 ounces. Tony Beats remained a powerhouse with over 3,000 ounces. Rick Ness, now proving himself as a leader, crossed the 1,000-ounce mark. The pressure wasn't letting up, and every move had to be calculated perfectly. Season 11 brought another leap forward. Parker and his crew hit over 8,300 ounces, their biggest season yet. Tony Beats, never one to be left behind, racked up more than 4,600 ounces. Rick Ness wasn't slowing down either, surpassing 2,000 ounces. The game was evolving, and the miners had to evolve with it. Season 12, another ruthless battle for dominance. Parker's team locked more than 800 ounces. Tony Beats dominated with over 5,000 ounces, and Rick Ness continued proving his mettle with more than 1,000 ounces. The gold was still out there, but it was getting harder to find, and every misstep could mean the end of a season's worth of work. But this show was never just about the gold. It was about the fights, the betrayals, and the rivalries that made it impossible to look away. At the end of the day, something needs to change. I really don't care right now. A deal's made. We'll stick to this one. Good enough. These miners weren't just chasing treasure. They were fighting for pride, for respect, and for the right to call themselves the best. Jim Dorsey and Greg Remsburg's fight in Season 1 was just the beginning. When the gold wasn't coming and patience wore thin, tempers exploded. Dorsey couldn't take it anymore and finally snapped. Remsburg wasn't backing down, and before long, fists were flying. Dorsey left for good, but the rest of the crew made sure he wouldn't forget them. They tore down his cabin in a final act of frustration. Season 3 brought another unforgettable clash. Dave Turin and Trey Polson had always butted heads, but splitting into separate teams turned their rivalry toxic. Turin's side struggled while Polson's team hit gold. The frustration boiled over into an all-out fight. Turin took the worst of it and walked away, leaving the Hoffman crew forever. This wasn't just about the gold anymore. This was personal. Parker Schnabel and Tony Beets had their own legendary feud. Parker once saw Tony as a mentor, but Beets was never the type to hold anyone's hand. When Tony shut down Parker's wash plant, Parker retaliated in the only way he knew how, by dumping dirt on Tony's land. It was a warning shot, a sign that Parker wasn't going to roll over and let the old guard push him around. Season 7 saw another explosive moment. Foreman Kendall Madden called out Johnny Stans for slacking off, and the confrontation spiraled fast. Stans wasn't about to take the criticism lying down, and the fight nearly derailed the entire operation. Madden later tried to smooth things over, but the damage had already been done. The deeper Parker dug, the stranger things got. He could take the gold and leave, buried fortune, hidden truths. Nobody knew this mine existed, at least not in recent history. It was buried under layers of time, hidden behind a jungle of overgrown trees and thick brush. Most people would have walked right past it, but not Parker. His instincts told him to stop, to take a closer look, and when he finally cleared the entrance and stepped inside, what he saw sent shivers down his spine. Of course, Parker wasn't about to let an opportunity like this slip away. He rallied his crew, got the gear in, and started digging. And the payoff? Massive. Within hours, they had already pulled out hundreds of grams of gold. Compared to the backbreaking work they usually had to do in the Yukon, this was a dream come true. No frozen ground, no fuel-burning machinery, just pickaxes, shovels, and instant reward. But then the questions started creeping in. Why had this place been abandoned? Who walked away from a literal gold mine? And why were there strange relics scattered around? Things that didn't belong, things that made no sense. The deeper they dug, the weirder it got. Tools that didn't match the era, carvings that looked way too sophisticated for the time period. It was like stepping into a time capsule that held more than just gold. And then there was Kano, a fellow miner who had been going all in on a separate dig nearby. The guy was burning through resources, desperate to hit bedrock, gambling on the idea that there was something big waiting for him. Parker knew that feeling all too well. The line between striking rich and losing everything was razor thin. Mining wasn't just about the gold, it was about knowing when to push forward and when to walk away. But Parker wasn't about to turn back. He had come too far, uncovered too much, and just when it seemed like the mine had given up all its secrets, they found something else. A hidden chamber, completely sealed off from the rest of the tunnels.